Welcome to Horticulture, where a group of extension professionals and plant people talk about the business, production, and joy of planting seeds and helping them grow. Join us as we explore the culture of horticulture. Hello, it's another winter day here on the podcast, but we have exciting things we're talking about. But one thing I feel like I want to talk about that the cold reminds me of is comfort food. So I need to know, what is your comfort food? When it's cold and you have time to make something, what is it?
Soup, beans, fried potatoes, and cornbread.
Ooh.
Dang, that's good.
Old fashioned. In the 1800s, you had plenty of that.
Oh, yes. I've got some cornbread, some iron skillets to make some really good cornbread. I'm just saying.
Brett, what's your
Perfectly golden
comfort
brown.
food?
Well, I didn't know if we talk about Ray's eternal youthful looks. I didn't know with his vampiric background if he was going to say the blood of a fresh victim or
Yeah, that's for an aperitif.
Oh, yeah.
I see.
You went
puts him
straight
on edge.
vampire.
Yeah.
We call him Peter
It gets
Pan.
the juices
but
going.
Vampire
Oh,
works.
I assumed Peter Pan was a vampire.
Count Peter Pan.
Ooh,
Oh,
yeah. There's
That's a
Yeah.
spin-off fantasy series. Peter Pan is a
Yeah.
vampire.
Mhm.
But I would say I have several. One, Annie makes butternut squash mac and cheese. That's pretty much a
Mm.
winter staple.
Sounds
My
great.
dad makes a really good chili that I enjoy, and our week, normal in the week is some lentil soup with kind of
Yum. Love lentils.
veggies and
All the
some spices
soups.
and that kind of stuff.
Chili soup. You're
Lentils
mentioning
remind
some
me of
good
my
stuff.
grandmother. She always made lentil soup.
Mhm.
Oh.
Yeah. Josh?
Yeah, I lately this winter it's been like big. Speaking of lentils, I put together this like lentil based curry, masoor dal. If you're into like South Asian food, it's pretty cool. It's like tomatoes and onions and red lentils,
Yum.
slow cooked. Yeah, with some naan. Even though you can do it with rice, naan is awesome. And then the other one is I found this way to kind of scramble eggs. It's like this Cantonese sort of recipe that's involves like toasted sesame oil and
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
like fried egg and rice.
Okay. All right.
These
I'm
are
in
recent. Those are recent.
Those are very
Gosh,
recent.
they're
Yeah,
not-
yeah.
it's not like-
okay,
I'm just going to say, Griff come up with something real good. There was a lot of words that Josh used that I'm not sure about.
Mine is a little bit more related to yours, Ray, but I made over the cold weekend, I made like cheese grits with like an
Oh,
heirloom red
man.
corn.
Oh,
and
man.
so like from scratch cheese grits, and then
Oh,
I'm telling you, man, it just
I
hits
did not
the
grow
spot.
up eating a lot of grits, but I've developed an affinity for them later in life.
Oh, really?
I
I grew
yeah.
up, mom always had, it was like
I didn't.
we'd
Yeah.
have instant oatmeal and instant grits. And I mean, she'd make like old fashioned grits, but that was just like something that was always in the house that you could have if you wanted some like hot breakfast.
We had hominy instead of that.
Yeah, we
Hominy a
had
lot, and
hominy.
I did not enjoy that so much.
But
so
yeah.
well,
Yeah.
if you have any grits left over, I think I maybe talked about this before, but it's one of my. If you take them and like once they've recongealed kind of into a semi-solid state,
Ooh.
you take them and cut them
Congealed.
into like cubes or strips, and you can pan
Fry
fry
'em.
either
Yeah.
side of it.
Like polenta.
Ooh.
Mm.
First time I ever had that was at a restaurant here in Lexington where they had a shrimp and grits that was you like cut into a cube and the center of it oozes. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'd
Polenta
say historically
is
for
good
me,
like that.
making me think of biscuits and gravy. Because gravy, you know,
Gravy.
Any
I know
bread
I've asked this question
food.
before, but I
It's
like to
optional.
ask it throughout the winter because I think we change our taste maybe change. So I don't know, but I made cheese grits and they were delicious. And Tyler ate the last tiny bit of them, and I was so upset.
You
And he was
sound
like,
bitter.
Oh, yeah.
You do.
"You have so much more," and I'm like, "Yeah, but they're not made," and I'm so upset about it.
A kind of interesting thing of like the seasonal thing, not only of taste changing, but of food changing. We a couple years ago, we were getting more like local milk and we made yogurt. And I
Nice.
noticed in the course of we were making yogurt year round. And in the course of the summer versus the winter, of course, this is obvious to anyone who has had good dairy, the composition of curd to whey to everything else changed because of the cow's diet across that period of time. And so like it would be a little runnier during one time. I think a little during the summertime, it'd be a little runnier, a little more whey, a little more protein in the diet. And it would be a little less runny in the, and I confirmed that by looking it up on an extension website because
Nice.
That's
You
where
want
you
to
can
be
find
that's what I
research-based.
go for information.
good
Yeah.
scientific information.
You say good dairy. That was my first memorable dairy experience. My grandmother, I kept bothering her. She was milking a cow. So I was just fascinated with that. I thought that was so weird. Who was the first person ever thought that was a good idea and then drink that? But I was like, kept bothering her, wanted to see the process. And she's like, well, come down here. And she just kind of squirted the milk straight from the cow into my mouth. And my first thought was, why is it so warm? But beyond that, I learned to churn butter and all that stuff. And you said good dairy. There is a difference.
Yeah.
Fresh dairy and other. Yeah. And fresh milk, I do remember those. Those are good memories. But I do remember the milk being very warm. I was like, wow, that's super warm milk.
I don't know if it's a sign of getting older or what, but I remember trying buttermilk when I was young and being so grossed out. And now, I mean, I don't just pour myself a glass of buttermilk, but I do.
Oh, man.
Take a little swig when I'm making pancakes, a little taste for
just
daddy.
Let it go one step further. I love cottage cheese, but I will not eat. I do not like buttermilk, but cottage cheese now, I'll just take a big spoon and eat that.
Oh, yeah. I love cottage cheese with a summer tomato and fresh
tomatoes or
salt,
peaches or whatever.
No, see, I don't do sweet cottage cheese. That's weird to me. I don't.
I love it. Pineapples or peaches, either one. Love it. That's my salad dressing.
I want tomato, and I'm gonna put cayenne pepper on it and some salt, and it's like spicy.
A lot of black pepper.
Yeah. I've been thinking a lot about my dad lately, and he does cottage cheese with pickled beets and black pepper and salt.
Yes.
And I remember, I don't have a weak stomach, but I can remember actively gagging at the thought of that as a kid. But maybe I have to circle back and try it again.
Beets.
No, that sounds like
try that.
I feel like taste changes as you get older. Like my appreciation for sour now exists, whereas it used to not. Except in candy form.
That's why a lot of kids actually don't like something. It's not with some kids, it's because they don't want to try it. But for a lot of kids, they don't like something because they can taste compounds that your adult taste buds don't taste. Yeah. So you have to in extension, we do the hello bite. You have to try everything at least once, right? But anyways, I'm sorry, I got us off on food, and this is a plant podcast, which, kind of
dairy is a type of plant.
It's together. Yeah.
Gravy has
bloody
in
butcher corn grits is the grits.
Milk from the milkweed.
Milk from
don't drink that. It may be irritating.
Don't drink,
But as you have
it'll prevent you from getting eaten by predators, though.
True.
They don't like latex either.
Sorry, I cut you off.
As you have seen from the title of this episode, we're just kind of talking, a little more personal of our own stuff and stuff that we're excited about for this upcoming growing season. I'm sure there's other professions and hobbies and things that you can start over with, but I think that's one of the most exciting things about growing for me is that you can start over every year. It's fresh and it can be a clean blank slate unless you put your cover crop down. But even then, it's very much, I think, a new chance to start over. And I think that's really exciting. No matter how many years you've been growing or involved in this, is that every year is new. And it's so great. Even after all these years and all the sweat and stuff, it keeps you going, keeps you motivated.
There's always something new to try or do. Is what keeps me kind of at it. Or there's a new variety. One of the things I want to do this year is, I've grown a garden for so long and had part of a commercial operation, years ago. And I still grow varieties that I can purchase over the counter. But I'm like, wow, when there's such a good source of, the typical tomato varieties at the local farmer's market or local grocery store. One of the things I want to do is maybe grow some heirlooms. And the reason that I've not been growing more heirlooms in my own personal garden is that I don't have the best airflow where I put the tomato plants. And so I worry about some of the heirlooms are more prone to diseases. They don't have quite the disease resistance as some of the newer varieties. But I want to grow some wackadoo stuff. I want to grow some of the old Cherokee purples. I want to grow some of the heirlooms that are older than that. I want to grow some that I can't readily purchase. It's one of the great things about a home garden. And I'm the only one that eats fresh tomatoes. I have a family full of salsa lovers, but I'm the only one that will go out and eat a fresh tomato. So since I'm the only one consuming those things from the vine, without some kind of additive salsa mix, aka
Not
salsa.
even between two pieces of bread. Like, come on.
Yeah,
You're
no,
just
they will
eating
not
it
eat
like
them
an
on a
apple.
sandwich. I'm just talking about just picking them off. I will make a tomato and mayo sandwich in the summer.
Nice.
I
My
love that.
favorite.
But I love my tomatoes, but I want to grow some interesting heirlooms. That's one of the things that I hope to do this year. And we're very lucky here in my county that we have one of those libraries that do the heirloom seed giveaways. And I need to work with them a little bit more closely on that anyways. But get into some of that and bring back some of the varieties that maybe my parents loved that you can get really easily. I want to do that, and also do some beans, some greasy beans, bring some of those seeds back because our family is losing those seeds that we've had in our family forever. So I'm going to not only grow those to consume, but grow those to repopulate the seed bank that we have. So
Look at you,
I'll
Ray,
help you.
repping the home place.
Mhm.
I love that.
Need to, but
Love that.
I was thinking, why am I growing the typical? Well, they're easy and they're thrifty. They produce a lot, but for my own personal garden, I don't want the best producers. I want the ones that have the qualities that I remember as a kid through rose-colored glasses. I
Yeah.
want those that may not be the best packers, may not have the best qualities to ship for long distances, but they have these tremendous eating qualities. These heirloom varieties are known
It'll make
for
it
that.
from the garden to your plate for sure.
Yes, it'll make it. I may just take
You'll
the
survive the
bread
trip.
and some mayo down to the garden and a knife in my pocket, and I
Make
may
the
just
sandwich
cut
on the
them.
vine.
Yes,
Right.
and just leave it.
I
And I'm
want
like,
photos.
let's push this freshness to the bleeding edge. I will not unhook it from its living
You've heard of
IV.
You've heard
Yeah.
of vine ripened, vine eaten.
Ooh, man, that could be a thing, Josh. Yes.
Just
It's like, you want to taste
imagining
freshness? You're tasting the roots practically.
you're
Yeah.
gonna have to
Like,
really trellis that appropriately. Get
Yeah,
underneath
that's right.
there.
yeah, maybe something where they're hanging down, kind of like grapes, where you can just
Yeah.
sort of get under them. Yeah,
Account for that on your irrigation because you're pulling on the water column.
yeah.
Slurping the
Just
juice
suck
out.
inside. You can see your water meter start to spin or your rain barrel go down when you start to
This
eat
guy set off
aggressively.
potentiometers.
Oh man, the flow rate is going crazy. What is happening? But yeah, hey, why? If you have a small home garden, that's one of the best things. Is just trying whatever makes you happy. Now, commercially, we would definitely not. That would not be our rubric for decision making. Was whatever made us happy. It's whatever makes the customer happy, and we can produce a nice uniform product. But if it's just
I
me
tell the
at
customer
home
what
this
they
year,
want.
I'm going to grow some wackadoo stuff.
That's
What'd you
That
say,
is what I'm
Alexis?
saying.
It's a education problem. You got to educate the consumer
Yeah, I
about
tell
what
the
will
cu-
make them happy.
I tell the
It's really
consumer
what
what
makes
they
you
what
happy
will
that
make
you're
them
going to sell
happy.
them.
Because I'm like,
Trust
this
me.
makes me happy, and this is what I'm doing, so it will make
I
you happy
know
too.
If
it's gonna
I'm
make you
happy,
happy.
you're happy.
Trust me,
Yes.
I'm an
If
expert.
I'm happy, your tires stay inflated.
My entire thing in extension is every time someone says something, I'm like, you can trust me. I'm a professional. Just
Ron
about
Swanson
anything. About
at the
anything.
Lumberyard.
Not plant related at all. You can trust me. I'm a professional.
Love it.
Would I lie to you?
Would I do that?
Might tell a story.
What about the
Wait,
Bald
get
Boys? How are you
anecdotal.
guys feeling about 2024?
What other
Well,
projects? Yeah.
Yeah, so we have, as I've mentioned before, I at one point was working at the horticultural research farm, and when I stopped working there and took my current job, I don't know if I missed it or felt a need for continuity, but we kind of created this little mini scale vegetable micro farm in our backyard. So everything was basically the same as it would be in a field environment. So header line, regular, Toro, drip tape, and all that fun stuff. And it was insane. And for a couple of years, it was cool. And then Annie and I had a frank Annie is my wife. Annie and I had a frank conversation about we're not really enjoying this anymore.
It's a job now.
You walk out and you just see all the weeds and it's stressful and all those things. And so we made the decision a couple years ago to transition away from doing as much of that stuff and more toward a landscaped, fully landscaped backyard. So not converting back to grass, but going to a fully landscaped backyard. We put in a patio a couple years ago and have spent way more time out there. And so my focus is on, I do bonsai trees as I probably mentioned before. but a lot of like woody perennials, herbaceous perennials, some annuals, and then Annie grows and makes lots of different herbal teas. So we have, I don't know, 30 or 40 jars of dried stuff from this last year that will be dwindled by the time that comes around, and so that's something else that we will be planting. I have a whole bunch of different seeds and stuff that I'm going to be starting either for bonsai or for just trees to give away to people or plants to give away to people, as well as we'll be starting a bunch of herb seeds too. But that's kind of our general MO is to lean into the little park instead of the little mini farm.
Right.
Oh, I love that description. A little park. That's so fitting.
Yeah, like a space to be in and
Yeah.
sustenance
like
from rather than to work.
Yeah.
Just because it's functional doesn't mean it can't be fun.
That's right.
Can't spell functional without fun.
The two are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes I approach gardening that way, but for me, just messing around out there is fun. But for my wife, she sees it more as functional. But what we did last year is we added a couple rows of flowers, and she came down a lot more. She visited and got more involved in it. I love that.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue that for the very reason you said, Brett, is that enjoyment at home. I mean, if that needs to be one of the functions, it needs to be one of the functions. But I was like, oh, well, these flowers are taking up tomato space. But that got her involved. And then Reed was down there a little bit more chasing butterflies and stuff. So it was more of a good fit for the family for the very reasons you just mentioned.
Yeah.
You kind of sometimes have to take a step back and see if what you're doing is accomplishing all that you want it to do. So
I think it honestly started because I was during COVID, trapped at home a lot, or here at home a lot more than I had been at other times. And I would sit out on this very poorly poured, cracked old mini patio thing. And we didn't have any shade cover, and our backyard is kind of southwest facing. And so I would just sit out there, and after, noon or after 10 o'clock, depending on the day, I would just be like cooking. And so I got some umbrellas and stuff like that. And I started thinking like, I would enjoy being out here a lot more if we had a shaded space to sit and some like pretty cool things that don't require me to go and pull weeds and trellis them every third day. And turns out I was right.
What do you know?
And so going and sitting out there and now having a space to kind of have people over and all that kind of stuff. But we also, we have a CSA share, and we still buy stuff from the grocery store and from farmers market and all those places. And so the food side of things, we decided to let some people whose passion is growing food do that. And we would support them and serve that delicious food and eat it out in a space that we really liked. And that was, I don't know, there was a little bit of pride for me in letting go of the mythos of, people think, you all come across this probably, people would ask us, on our whole lot is like a 1/4 acre, and the area we had in cultivation was generously 1/10 of an acre. And people would kind of ask, so do you guys produce all the food you eat on that area? And I was like,
yes, it's all potatoes.
Yeah.
Every inch of it.
Yeah, pretty starchy. But there was a certain mythology about like, oh, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have the garden, and
homesteaders,
the hipster homesteader, yuppie, whatever we are. And letting go of that, I found not only did I enjoy it more, but like I don't feel pressure. I don't feel like I have to go out because I'm not selling this stuff. This isn't, Alexis is doing stuff because this, like, she wants to build this business and do that. And I know that there are times where you don't feel like going out and doing the thing, but you're doing it because it's part of a bigger ambition, a bigger dream, a bigger vision. And for us, that we just decided that vision was a little bit different, and have been very, very happy with the results of that in our lives.
I love that. I love that you made that a place for you all, and, just kind of rethought your goals, and just, again, it's that blank slate every year, and it's a reminder that you can change your mind. Like, I think sometimes, I know a lot of time we spend a lot of money and time getting an area ready. And so, maybe it's not that you just stop doing it altogether, which that's fine too, but maybe instead of veggies, you grow a few more flowers, or vice versa, and so I love that freedom of change. It's the only constant, right?
And I do think, to Ray's point about, I do enjoy an occasional tomato fresh on a sandwich or whatever. I have been thinking about I have some, but I'm getting some other kind of bigger pots and growing maybe like 2 or 3 tomato plants, or maybe some jalapeno plant or something like that to go along with the herbs. Just as a, like, we don't,
Yeah.
my mindset was like, I'm only going to put out 25 tomato plants. What the heck? And it's like, that was just insane. That was what we were doing. It was like
Literal
25 of those,
insanity.
and then we would can them, and then it was like a whole thing, and we liked it. But eventually it was like, I don't want to can. Do you want to can?
Right.
Yeah.
Hottest day of the year. Let's fire up the kitchen.
It's 90% humidity outside. Let's see if we can equalize that inside the house.
Let's bring it in.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was just, but it was an exercise in like letting go of some of that ego and embracing humility and being honest. And it was
you
really
mentioned there's a pretty nice fabric of a food fabric there. It sounds like you have access to some high quality local stuff. So I mean that plays into that decision too. It sounds like so.
Yeah, and we're like a lot of people, we are a little more financially stable than we were when we moved in. When we moved in, it was just my income, which was not very much at the time. And now, we're both working, and that's important to us. So we spend our money there and spend our time doing other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Kind of echoing off that. I mean, I definitely understand that transition, coming from, you were working on the South Farm and then get that place. And it's like kind of having that mindset of like, let's maximize this productive space. And, living in the city, it's very different than kind of being out in the country, where it's like a pain to get out into the grocery store. And maybe, you have a farmer's market, but you have all that space. Whereas like where we are, you have the 1/4 of an acre plot, 1/10 of it to kind of work with. That's kind of, accepting that is sort of the direction I'm trying to go in. I have only owned this space for, I guess I'm entering my 3rd year in February. And very little has gone on in the backyard, and oftentimes I find myself kind of paralyzed by, I want to do, say, one activity, and it'll make me think, well, in order to start that right, I need to do this first. And like, it'll kind of be this, like, I keep moving backwards from when I started thinking about it. But my priority is to get a space set up that, reflects that I am in the city and I have access to like fresh produce relatively easily. I don't have a lot of space to work with, and bang for my buck, because I'm obsessed with like functionality. And, what I can get is, I've been obsessed with my memories of working my first farm job. My first task on the first farm job was taking care of a very well-developed and surrounded by kind of hardscaping and masonry, but this really awesome kind of culinary and tea herb garden that was just set up with really nice, like it was a raised bed, but very highly raised, to the extent that it was like you could sit on a shelf and work with the plants really easily. So somewhere that's just very comfortable to maintain, right? And so I can get those like fresh herbs into the garden. So it's definitely in the scale of like a kitchen garden, but primarily focused on like fresh herbs and stuff that I can pull in. And I have spent a lot of time and effort in 2023 kind of working on my kitchen. And now it's like, I feel like I need to have a kitchen garden that goes with it, that'll kind of like feed into it.
You could not have executed your kitchen vision in that space any better than you have. It is like, for what you want, for what how you use it, it is incredible. Incredible.
It's been like a revelation. Like, I mean, it's made me so excited about trying new things and making new things, because it's just like, God, I can reset the whole kitchen and clean everything so fast that I can get wild. Like the investment of time and energy to think through things is like gone. I can just like make it happen.
And so now you pull your herbs in, you've got to flow into the house.
Right into the
it's a straight line. Like, it's kind of,
it's pretty awesome.
Fun to think about. And so I'm trying to like bring like the execution of doing that kitchen remodel. It's such a highly functional space already. And it's like, you want to have it the minimal downtime. So it was a real headache kind of thinking about the order of operations. And I find myself in the same sort of like analytical paralysis about the outside space, but seeing and being happy with what's happened with the kitchen is like kind of made me rededicated to like, you know what, I can do this. I just need to like
Yeah.
Plan it out and it'll happen.
And you're thinking too about doing some what we in the biz would call hardscaping.
Big time.
Right?
Yeah, big time. I want it to be very like
what is hardscaping before we
it's landscaping with stuff that's hard. So like
everything but the plants.
Right. It's like pavers, it's stonework, it's stuff like that. It's places that it's set up for kind of supporting traffic. And God, I bet you there's a really awesome concise definition, but let's just say like rocks and pavers is what comes to mind. Sand and stone. I've been thinking definitely that first kitchen garden, herb garden that I worked on was heavily hardscaped. So it's not a place I need to weed. You can go out there and just kind of sweep it off. And my own trips to like the Cincinnati Botanical Garden and how they do stuff at the zoo with like hardscaping and landscaping, where it's like, I mean, they have a lot more capital and labor to work with, but I could see how quickly they could create like an instant sort of landscape feature. It's just like,
it looks like it's been there forever. Yeah.
I'm trying to accept my limitations, but seeing that and seeing what's possible in small spaces is really inspiring into like what you can do with like a backyard to create something that I want to hang out in, but can also like pull things of value.
Your whole conversation with the kitchen garden reminds me, I don't know why I'm so obsessed here lately with, and these are current videos from around the world and maybe some areas of the world that are not as industrialized or as developed. But there's a tradition where they will have a kitchen garden, but literally the oven and the kitchen area is outside of the home beside where the garden is close by. I guess number one is they don't need all that excess heat in hot summers inside the home. But there's these beautiful big ovens and these patio areas that are gorgeous and functional and a very old style that I'm sure has been around for hundreds of years. And I love those videos. And they'll take like, quarters of carcasses of meat, and then they'll take fresh herbs from the garden. They'll marry all that together, break it down and put it in these ovens, or make these meals, or make all the bread, all the beautiful breads. But I've been watching a lot of those, and your conversation reminds me of that, is that the kitchen area was designed with the indoor and outdoor space in mind with the kitchen garden. So it's incredible design.
I would that's something is more longer term, but like Brett has a space that's kind of like outdoor kitcheny with that patio, and like it makes so much sense, especially in summertime. I mean, like those spaces, there's so much heat given off, and it's so much more comfortable. And you can do more like grilling or smoking really long, kind of like
and I will say about that very specifically. So I'm not, I don't represent any brands yet, but if anybody wants to sponsor me,
influencer status.
If you've heard of pellet grills before, this is a thing that feeds little wood pellets in. Well, to me, they're doing themselves a tremendous disservice by marketing it just as a grill, because it allows us to. On my pellet grill, I bake bread, I bake cookies, I bake like a Pyrex dish, macaroni and cheese in the middle of the summertime. Sometimes you want that and you don't want the heat. And basically it is like a electronically controlled oven that's outdoors for that kind of hybrid effect. You can still grill on it and all that kind of good stuff. But and the other thing you were saying, and another thing, I just echo what you said earlier about the hardscaping. That was something I don't think that I fully appreciated until maybe the last couple of years. I started doing some research on Japanese gardens in particular, but also other styles of gardens. And the hardscaping is actually in a kind of more the traditional kind of more minimalist. The plants are important, but so are the stones, so are the areas of a hardscape like gravel or whatever. You don't have to water rocks. You don't have to fertilize rocks. The area that they cover, pretty much weeds won't grow directly under them. And I've integrated some hardscaping. And so if that's something, if you're kind of stuck and you want to do some landscaping around your house, or you want to do something different around your house and you're stuck and you just keep throwing out plants like we were for a long time, putting in some of that hardscape kind of stuff, which is a huge part of the landscape industry, makes a huge difference, because like it kind of gives like the frame for the picture. And if you're really into the plants, or it can be the picture itself, and the other things are yeah, I'm really excited to see some of the stuff that develops with how you execute that stuff. And I'm sure I'll be over sweating right alongside you. We live about a mile apart or less from each other. So I'm
Yeah, I
sure
think it's like half a mile. So yeah, pavers when we're laying
You guys will be
those.
making
Oh, gosh.
pizzas all summer
I'm busy
long
that
in these
day.
big pizza ovens. Yeah,
I'm
too
busy
busy
on
to come
paver
over.
day, but
So.
I'd be happy to come over and watch
Yeah.
them dump a
And
scoop of something.
eat the pizza.
It is hard to kind of overstate the function of pavers and
Mhm.
hardscaping in a landscape because it's like when I think of those times like now even or times when it's muddy, right?
Mhm.
You have this dedicated area that you can maneuver about your garden and do things without disturbing or messing up the soil or messing up the plants that you can wheel a wheelbarrow on, all that kind of stuff, or just, maneuver about without getting your shoes totally muddy and unable to bring them in the house. You can run out there real quick, do a quick thing, and run back into the house.
Yeah, and one of the things we use to solve that in a lot of American landscapes, and you all know I throw no shade to anybody on anything, is grass. Like grass doesn't get muddy the way that mud gets muddy. But if you're interested in doing some lawn replacement, that's kind of been a hot thing over the last number of years. I do think hardscaping and some of that planning can be your friend, because if you are like me and you're ambitious about your ability to weed everything, don't make my mistakes.
It is
Learn
not my
from me.
garden, but I'm definitely interested in putting more clover. You mentioned like lawn areas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
just going to, in late February, early March, I am just going to throw some clover seed in because it is
Nice.
possible. Clover seed's tiny. I mean, you can do that with clover, whereas you can't do it so effectively with grass seed. But I just want to get some more clover in my going down, leading into my back lawn area. I'm not going to break any neighborhood rules or regulations because nobody can see it, so they can't mind.
Yeah.
But in my back, I just want a bunch of clover in there.
Yeah.
It's nice. That same first farm that I worked on, we had a lot of pathways that were grassy, and they were heavily seeded with like that, perennial white clover. And
That's exactly what I'm going for. Yeah,
it was pleasant. I mean, even if you run out there, right time of the year, you can run out there barefoot, and it's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
bees will love you too.
Especially
just
if
be
you step
careful.
on one.
Yeah. But usually when we have the cousins over, I have some that I actually let it grow this year and put nothing on and encourage the clover to grow. And we had pretty good success. I didn't specifically seed a lot, but when the Reed's cousins, my son's cousins would come over, we did mow right before then, and that would take, the bees' motivation away to be there. So that's how we deal with that. But had no issues with that. I mean, we don't have a ton of traffic. I mean, clover's not appropriate for a high traffic. It doesn't have a lot of tolerance for that in some cases, but it works perfect in our backyard, small backyard, and it's very low maintenance. So I'm just going to encourage it all I can. So that's one of my garden. It's not exactly like a vegetable garden thing, but it's in my home backyard area. It's one of the things I'd like to do is get more clover going.
Nice.
Aw.
Do you have
Love to
a
do that.
favorite white clover, like a Ladino or like a New
Like an
Zealand? Like, do you
Alsace
like? I've heard of and seen pictures of these like micro clovers, but I've never seen anybody use them.
It's kind of a gray area.
I looked into micro clover, and they can be really great, but in Kentucky, they don't. If I remember correctly, they don't deal with humidity. They get a lot of disease pressure, and where we're so humid. And then there was something with, I don't know if it's either drought or I forget which way it swung, but it was like it either didn't like a ton of water all at one time or didn't handle drought very well. So like you kind of had to be particular about
had to
where you put
baby it.
it. Yeah,
I feel
it
like
was.
common white is our best bet. It has a wide tolerance, and when everything else is brown in Kentucky in the summer, that's one of the things that's going to be green and loving it is just common white clover. But the micro clovers are different. Yeah.
What about you, Alexis? You probably have the biggest plans and maybe the hardest to summarize.
Making big moves.
Yeah, I was thinking about that of just kind of what I was changing. And I think so this year I'm not doing anything in July. So I'm pushing all of my spring, like what I would normally plant like for summer, like things that you would plant around here. We, plant after the Derby is when we say like our last frost date is. So those types of things when you would plant your tomatoes, all that jazz. I'm waiting and putting those in probably a month later to push them into more of an August timeline. And that goes from a marketing standpoint. So I don't sell as many flowers in July in any market that I have, wholesale, retail. People aren't here, it's hot. So I'm pushing all of that at least a month so that I can have those flowers when I need them, and just not, I'm going to try and use July to catch back up on all the things that I let down in spring, and just maybe have a little bit of time for myself when it's hot and I don't necessarily want to be outside and I want to be in my backyard that's shaded, and maybe putting in my own little garden bed. I did that this year. I put in my own like flower bed that was just it was
awesome.
just for enjoyment and not for production. I mean, not
How
to say I
weird
wouldn't
was
cut out
that?
of it. So weird, but it is so
Must maximize
nice.
production.
Yeah, it's so.
Let's
I mean, I
maximize
put
enjoyment.
Yes.
I put flowers that like I could cut on, but they would be the kind that like I might bring in the house. Like, yeah, I might use them in a bridal bouquet, but it's more for me. So that's
Zinnias
really
or
exciting.
whatever.
That's awesome. I'm really glad you did that. I didn't realize you'd done that.
Yeah, it's right outside, and it's right outside where my favorite chair is. Like, we have a little side porch that's shaded in the summer. And so
Nice.
my goal is to our backyard. So we have a spring house in our backyard as well as a cistern. And we also have a old root tiller. And our backyard is sloped and because it slopes like kind of down into the spring house area. It's very rocky. It's almost completely shaded. So it's like really hard to mow, but it's also like, because it's sloped, it's hard like to put, it'll take a lot to put in hardscaping. So
like
I'm just
you'd
trying
have to terrace it almost or something.
Yeah, something. It just, there would be more inputs than me just doing like a couple weekends worth of a project.
Totally.
like so
retaining walls and you.
Yeah.
Hardscaping 101.
I'd like to maybe take the year to kind of hash out a general plan for that kind of place to be enjoying. So that's like kind of more on a personal level. And then from a kind of commercial standpoint, it's the giving up my July. And by giving it up, I mean reclaiming it is more of what I'm doing. Reclaiming my July.
Giving it from one part of yourself to the other.
Yeah. And then I also want to get more involved, want my business to get more involved with my local group of people, like locals. I think that that's where my market will eventually shift over time, over the next 10 years or so, doing more local sales, looking at CSAs, looking at, we don't do farmers market, but that kind of thing, people doing the farm stand. So I want to be more involved with my local chamber and just showing up or sponsoring events. If you're doing a charity fundraiser, maybe I'll, provide an arrangement or something for you to give away. So that's kind of where my brain is for, and we took on a lot less, but for like the farming standpoint and garden standpoint, and I think that's where my brain is at now. Of course, I'm also an extension agent, and so I'm lucky that I get paid to talk about plants, and that's fun because that's like something I love to do, right? And luckily,
I have doing anyway on the street corner.
I'd be doing anyways, right? And so
telling people whether or not they want to.
Yeah, luckily, I have a community that has told me, has voiced a lot of things that they want to see, and they're things that are just like super cool, anyways. So it's gonna be like fun to get involved with that, and so that'll be cool. I feel like it's like this is technically a work podcast, but I talk a lot about myself like more personally. So
we're more interested in Alexis the person.
We're more interested in the flowers in your backyard.
Well, I like to think that growers, and whether you're like a large scale grower or a home gardener, takes what I maybe talk about personally and not as extension agent Alexis, and you can use that, and you're like, oh, well, here's someone who is an agent but also is using this, so it can't be all bad. So hopefully that's hopefully that's the vibe.
That's awesome. Yeah, so maybe we'll look at doing a 5K to raise money for me and Josh to get some hair plugs in 2025. And we can count on a Wild Roots contribution for that.
Yeah. We'll spot
you
our
could even
Wild
do like
Roots
the hair roots
shirts.
collabo.
Yeah.
Hair boots.
You can give me the really cheap ones that look about as natural as like a row of corn and bathtub.
Like somebody's glued a patch of brown moss on your head.
Bald boys no more. 5K.
Yes. Former bald boys.
So you are. I assume you've already started seed starting.
No, I don't start seed starting till February 1. And that's like
Nice.
another thing where I claim my January. And part of that is just like I buy plugs of the stuff I would have to be starting right now. It's just
Sure.
Get a
financially
jump.
makes sense. But also it was like it made sense for my own brain because I don't ever really shut down until Christmas. Like my brain does not. I
Right.
still have things to go. I'm still finishing out the year. I'm still dividing dahlias and digging and all that. So like Christmas is like I start to shut down. So I need all of January. And then February seed starting is so exciting and I really do enjoy it, but I need like the fact that January, everyone is like, January's 100 days long. I'm like, I wish it were 200. It's like, I need
It's
to be
2 days long.
Well, and you have
Right.
lots of you have perennials and biennials and other things that you're kind of fostering through the winter as well. It's not like it's or just letting them rock and roll in the ground. It's not like it's
My toddler
100%
high tunnel.
annuals. Yeah, you got
Yeah.
the high tunnel rolling. Is the eucalyptus still hanging in there?
We just cut it because I needed to be able to cover it
Yeah.
for the cold negative temps we were getting. But so I just finally cut it down. I mean, it would have gone probably until today in the 0 degrees, but yeah, I had to cut it. I posted a picture. It was taller than me, and I was like, my baby.
That's
My
awesome. And
angels.
and you will, just to give people a kind of a timeline or a sense of what I assume once things kick off, you'll be kind of planting stuff every week for a while, or
From
is it
like a
more like
seeding perspective.
so once you have your stuff in the once you have your starts of stuff, when do you
Ready.
start putting things in the ground or in the high tunnel? And
Yeah, I kind of have. So my high tunnel stuff has all been in. My high tunnel's pretty much full. The only thing I left I have to put in are my sweet peas. But the tunnel is full and will be full until the next planting of stuff will probably be in April or May.
and when was that? When was stuff planted into there?
October, November.
Cool.
And December, and I have another round of stuff that I was gonna put in there, but I decided to put my sweet peas in that spot, and I'm gonna try experimenting with some crate stuff, but for my January stuff. But so yeah, I kind of like focus around major seeding, like major times. So I'll have my first. I've got stuff outside under like Remay row cover that went in September, October. And then I'll plant outside around the first week of April. So that's kind of usually my goal is somewhere between the first week and the 15th, whenever the seeds
And
are
that's some of the more cold hardy-ish
Right.
stuff. Yeah.
right. And then usually the next big planting would be that kind of first-ish week of May, right there around Derby Day. But like I said, I'm pushing that. So I'm going to have plants ready for I have some grow kits that people buy, so they'll be able to buy those and take them home right on time for May. But I'm going to push that and either plant late May or 1st of June. So to give myself a little bit of a break, which it'll be really nice in the spring. And then hopefully it'll be really nice in the fall when I have higher quality product later in the season and not have to do multiple successions. So
Yeah.
We'll see. That's the theory, but plants don't read the books. So
Sounds good on paper.
yeah.
And that just as a throwback to our starting transplants episode, that you kind of start with when you want to put it in the ground, and then you say, okay, I want a 6-week-old transplant or an 8-week-old transplant, whatever the age is, and you work back, and that's your seed starting date. Because there's a lot of people who get real excited January, February, they throw some seeds in a tray, and they're like, I have a 12-foot tomato plant in a 50-cell tray. What am I supposed to do? So that
Start
kind
over.
of general theory. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, start over 8 weeks out from when you're one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool.
I got a call today from a flower grower this morning, and she's like, should I have started stuff already? And I was like, no. Like if this is your goal, let me put it this way.
No,
If
absolutely
this is your
not.
goal, then no, you're not behind. February 1st is when, I do stuff. And that was, I think, reassuring for her, that because it's so easy to get caught up. Like if you're on social media, if you're on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, everybody's doing stuff. But like you need to remember, are they in your zone?
Mhm.
Are they planning on doing, maybe they are in your zone, but they're planning on doing the extra labor of covering things, or they're going to bump stuff up, or they're going to do something different than you. Don't get caught up in what they're doing and feel the pressure. Go by your schedule. Look at what you're doing. Trust that you've done the math right. Maybe do the math again, but then trust
Yeah.
it. The math has been done. Read the books or call me if it's flower related. I can usually spout that off, but don't get caught up, because it's better to transplant a week or two late than have a transplant that's root bound, because it will
Yeah.
that late transplant will outcompete the root bound one.
But Alexis, what if bragging rights are on the line with your neighbor with the first tomato? I will go buy a cherry tomato in a pot that already has tomatoes on it, stick it in my garden, and pick the tomato and be like, first.
Right. What if the joy of horticulture comes from winning the competition?
Yes. The joy comes from being number one.
If you
Ray
want
already
that,
has customers lining up for his eat on the vine tomatoes.
I do.
his sandwiches, he holds the bread with the
That's
tomato
right.
between it.
I do.
And he lets them take a bite out of it.
He
It's gonna
understands what
be
service
amazing.
means.
It's gonna be taking freshness to a whole new fresh level. This is called super freshness. So
Well,
it's gonna be a thing.
One of those tensions too with the earliness thing, even with the high tunnel, even with all the technologies and stuff, it's kind of interesting that there's only so far that you can rush a plant.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it could very well be that you put that plant in the ground, on the date that you want to put it on, and then it just sits there essentially frozen in time, and you could have put it out a week later, and there's no appreciable growth. And there's a trade-off there too of like how much labor are you willing to put in to protect this thing, and it's much easier to protect it inside your little seed starting area than it is to put it out in the wherever you're going to put it. And that was something it was always I remember Kathy Raymeyer out in Eastern Kentucky back when she was doing some high tunnel stuff, and she would talk about these, like, I think she referred to them as the Janus days. I can't remember if that it's like this period of time where like everything slows down so much. And so with high tunnels, you maybe could either have enough growth going into that slowdown that you can harvest. We would do that with kale, for instance. We'd have these big bushy kale that needed to be harvested if it was a normal window, but they were so slowed down that we could just have that log to harvest. But the point mainly being, you can only push things so fast, and we live in a fast pushing culture, and so don't get in too big of a rush. And if you get your tomatoes in early June, you're still going to be eating some tomatoes this year, and
and you might miss some blight windows that come in in May. Like,
totally.
I always think there's kind of a reason for being late. Like, what I have learned, even as someone who like commercially has to have things available, right, and have all these people that I'm selling to, like, I feel like there's always a reason, and I'm always glad. Like, my first disappointed, I'm like, man, these dahlias should have been in a month ago, because that's been me more than 1 year. But then when I see that my dahlias look a lot better in September than someone who got them in way earlier, I'm hitting my better market window than when they had beautiful dahlias in July. And that's just as an example. So, it's okay to, I know I'm going to feel envious when I see beautiful zinnias in July and mine still haven't bloomed.
What is it that you were wondering why Brett and Annie produce? What was it that they get maybe blooms before you do?
Oh, our peonies.
Oh, yeah, they get peonies.
Brett came up with that real quick, I noticed. Yeah, our peonies.
Ours
Listen, it's not a competition.
Not a competition.
January 17th, I've got a whole bouquet of them cut in here, they're just about ready to open. We have the
microclimate.
We have both the microclimate and the heat sink of Lexington and everything else creates this 2-week window of bragging rights. Literally the only time in my life that I will have flower bragging rights over Alexis, and it's in no way anything I did.
And that correlates very nicely with the number of social posts that you're going to make.
That's right.
They will be on all the platforms. Lots of pictures.
Feeling bad for everybody who doesn't have peonies yet, but we're
I feel like every time Annie posts that, I'm just like, she's just rubbing it in. She's just posting a beautiful photo and how happy she is and how much how much it's giving her energy, and it's not about anybody else. And I'm just like, she's just rubbing it in.
I'm going to tag you next. I want to tag you this year.
Yeah, do it.
That's what I have.
Well, one very specific thing I wanted that I'm growing this year. Maybe everybody can say one thing that they're going to be trying that they're most excited about or something to close us out here. But so I came across there is and I've talked about it, I think before on the podcast, but I'm actually growing it. I've got it stratified and scarified and stratified, waiting to go in the seed starting trays. Is Ilex vomitoria, also known as Yopen holly.
Mm-hmm.
So the vomitoria
sounds like you should eat it or drink a tea just based on the name.
Well, so it's actually, Josh, thank you for bringing that up, because the reason for that name is actually European ethnocentrism in the process of naming the plant.
All right, so decolonize it for us.
I'm about to as a white guy, let me decolonize this. So I'll preface it by saying it is the only one that I can find as far as like citations or evidence for, though I've been informed by Ross Clark, the professor emeritus of horticulture from Eastern Kentucky University, who's a recent acquaintance, that it's probably not the only plant that is this way, but it's the only one that we really know well. It is the only North American native species that contains caffeine.
Oh yeah, I just looked it up and saw that. Wow.
And so what happened was there were some dudes who knew Latin who observed groups of indigenous people drinking this tea and also doing a bunch of other crazy stuff. Sure. And then they would throw up.
Let's make more of it.
It was kind of like it probably was the upper to kind of counteract some of the other things that were going in some, ceremonies and other things. And it is just part of the process, but it does not in fact make you vomitoria. It just has, and so it's hardy. It's supposed to be hardy to here, and it grows, I think, Texas and other places like that, but there is
huge range. It's like,
and there's that you can buy it,
Virginia to Oklahoma, Texas, all the way down to Florida.
You can buy it commercially. There's this Yopen Brothers holly tea or Yopen Brothers tea or whatever they sell. I've tried it. It tastes kind of like regular tea, but Andy grows all the herbal teas, and that's great, and it's very calming and soothing. But I need to just get a little jolt in the system.
You're looking for that high octane hit.
So I'm gonna try to grow that, and it's perennial. I'm gonna try to get one established there, and we have a couple other to make maybe a herbal tea blend with a little bit of caffeine is an exciting potential product of the Wample House backyard.
You will have added something very unique if you're successful to the jars of dried goodness that you guys have collected. Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm
pretty cool. About that. Any reviews on the taste on that? I'm just curious, Brett. Like,
it tasted kind of just like
doesn't matter.
A standard. It tasted a lot like
tea.
Regular tea, tea, Camellia sinensis. And in case I've gotten into, Josh got me kicked off on tea, and so naturally I couldn't just enjoy it on a low level.
Right. You had to go
down the rabbit
hole.
Yeah, but there's like a Wikipedia entry on Black Drink, which is like about this. That is got some cool pictures. I'm just picturing your face on some of these.
So like green tea, black tea, all that kind of stuff. It's actually generally the same species, different varietals that are just treated in different ways. So green tea and black tea are not different species. They are just different treatments of the same species, which I did not know until recently. I was reading about that, but it's gonna be interesting, and it just tasted kind of like somewhere between a black tea and a green tea, pretty subtle. Yeah,
awesome.
All the plans. Dad always said that gardeners and farmers were eternal optimists, always banking on the future. So.
Well, other than your Cherokee purples or anything. Cherokee purples and other wackadoo varieties, I think you said, of tomatoes. Any other particular things you're looking forward to trying this year, Ray?
No, the only other thing I'm wanting to do, it's more hardscapey, but is better water delivery to my little revamped garden area. I've redone my garden area. And I mentioned on an earlier podcast when we were talking about rain barrels, is I want to do a better job collecting that. And I have a nice elevation drop, which gives me passive pressure down to that garden area. And I want to redo all of that and make it more efficient and maybe be able to collect a little bit more water at one time because I don't have enough now. A small barrel is not going to water this bigger garden. So that's the only other thing that's a big project that's not a plant, but it's a delivery, getting the water to the garden to try to do a little bit better. But yeah, hope to do a better job with that and capture a resource that's normally just kind of going literally down the gutter. Yeah.
Nice.
Always with the plans.
Josh.
What? I already talked about my hardscaping.
He said, what?
I'm already
Why?
doing so. Is there a
I want to
plant
pave
at
the
your...
world, man.
Do you know what phase 1 might be?
I mean, I feel like it's going to be mostly hardscaping. If I were to start with some plants that I'd want to get going, would probably be common culinary herbs, rosemary. I really like onion chives a lot.
Oh yeah,
I feel like they don't get enough
Good
play
stuff.
in my food. Oregano, basil, probably. Yeah, I mean your common cast of characters.
I'm really advocating for you, Josh, a outdoor pizza oven because I am looking for that pizza. I mean,
that would be cool. And like, man, you can make like a lot of like the naan thing that I started messing around with. It made me get back into like playing around with dough. If I can plug a book, is that artisan bread in 5 minutes a day is like, that's my thing, is understanding how to get something really quick.
How can we hack this?
Yeah, and something I like about that process is like there's basically like a master dough recipe that you can then use to make all kinds of stuff, and that would be a welcome component to that would be like an outdoor kind of oven situation. I got a friend who put one of those together on his own farm, and they do like pizzas and stuff. And it's pretty incredible.
Awesome.
That would be probably like not
next level.
Year. Yeah,
next level. Yeah.
Alexis, you got anything beside your reclaimed July?
If we're thinking new things I'm trying, which had already been put in motion several months ago, but I am shooting for Valentine's Day tulips this year. So I'm just experimenting with about 200 bulbs. Well, and the other thing I'm experimenting with, I'm doing all of my tulips in crates. And while I've done that before, I still did them in crates outside. Like I planted them. The crates I've just kind of mulched up next to them, but we've not been getting the cold that we need. So all of my tulips, which I only do about, what did I do this year? About 1,200 tulips, which isn't.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I think I did like 21 year, and I was like, "This is awesome."
For flower growers.
For the conversion, that's 2,400 lips.
2 lips.
Comes by 2.
But anyway, well, I mean, you can fit like 60 to 75 bulbs in one like crate. And these are, like not milk crates. They're, kind of 2 milk crates size, but as far as width goes. But anyway, so I'm doing them all, and they're all in my cooler right now. And I check on them, making slightly panicked in whether or not they're going to grow and do anything. But I did pull all my tulips out for Valentine's Day. They're officially in the greenhouse, and we will see what happens. There are 100 things that could go wrong, but it was relatively low, low cost for me. So it's worth a shot if I can have some fresh tulips on Valentine's Day. So I'm excited.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's really exciting.
I'll let you all know. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, we'll know soon enough.
Talk about all these projects when it's so cold and dreary out in January, beginning of February, winter time. It's fun to dream about all the things that we want to do and all the improvements we want to make and maximize on our enjoyment of everything.
In August.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm a victim
of my own
planning.
Is the one that's actually 100 days long.
Yeah.
Yes, that is the one when you regret your life choices.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we hope that you guys, our listeners, our true leaves out there, maybe
the fellowship,
have come up with some awesome things that you all are doing, or maybe you're inspired to make some changes, or you're inspired to not do the things that we're doing because maybe it sounds crazy to you.
1,200
whatever.
tulips.
1,200. Listen, in the flower world, that's chump change. So if you're not doing 60,000 tulips, you don't do commercial tulips.
You're just dabbling around like a baby.
Pretty much. But anyways, we hope that you all maybe find something and are excited for the new year. Again, as always, feel free to send us an email that is in the show notes. If you've got any ideas, you can also send us a direct message on Instagram at Horticulture Podcast. We would love to hear from you. We've got some people who have reached out to us with some cool ideas, so we're going to work them into the schedule. It's exciting. And we've got some really cool guests coming up as well, so we hope that you will join us for those episodes and stay posted. And we are just happy to be here. So thank you for having us, and have a great one.